Hello, my name is Matthew Mercer. I'm a voice actor and the Dungeonmaster for Critical Role here at Geek and Sundry. And while we may have touched on it in the past, today's GMing tips is going in more in depth about the idea of customizing your creatures and characters for encounters. Now, whether you're running a party size larger or smaller than the system was actually balanced for, or you want to create your own strange new beasts, or have veteran players who've memorized the entire monster manual and you still want to surprise them, there's a lot of good fun to be had in occasionally customizing the creatures you use in your campaign. Now, I'll be using mostly Dungeons & Dragons examples here, especially 5th edition, but the general ideas and functions work for pretty much any gaming system out there. So, for smaller party sizes of 1 to 3 players, first off, consider the party makeup. Do they have a decent healer? Do they have a lot of damage dealers without a lot of defensive capabilities? You want to make sure you don't create encounters or customize creatures or put creatures in that will wipe them out immediately without some of those usual party dynamic abilities. You might want to consider adjusting some creatures to have attacks that inflict conditions over just direct damage. Perhaps a smuggler throws sand as an attack that blinds a player until they clear their eyes as an action. You could add a trip attack to some combatants that knocks a target prone. Maybe a dire wolf has a howl that can instill the frightened condition on a nearby target. These are examples of attacks that heighten the sense of danger without directly overwhelming a small party with damage. And if you want to add a powerful enemy for story flavor, but it could clean up against them, scale down a number of statistics to bring it a little closer to the party level. Like lowering HP by a fraction can certainly help, but the general defenses across the board can also take a little hit, such as a reduction in saving throws, spell DC, and armor class. Gauge which enemies at their level seem to give them a tough fight and adjust your boss foe to be comparable, if a bit nastier, because nastier is always fun. Now, attacks that can affect and lock down the entire smaller party can lead to an unfair TPK if you aren't careful. Consider adjusting some of these abilities to affect a smaller line or cone area, or perhaps reduce the paralysis status it inflicts to just restrained if most or all can be hit at once, just in case. You could even instill a story reason for the creature's weakened state, leaving a fear of the healthy version to eventually come. For larger party sizes of like 6, 7+ players, adding more hit points can help, but it isn't always the answer. Just adding more HP to a foe only drags out a less than dynamic fight if you don't find other ways to make the battle more interesting for the larger scope of combatants. Here are a few ways that you can up the ante without dragging out the battle too much longer than it's intended to be. So for larger party sizes, that usually means fewer rounds of combat, so make sure those rounds hurt. Consider a small bump in damage to most creatures. If it's a solo or a small number of villains, perhaps customize existing attacks or adding a new one that can affect multiple PCs. A sweeping cleave that hits all creatures adjacent to them, or a slamming tail attack that hits everything in a 15-foot line. An arcane ability that summons up crushing vines from the ground in a 20-foot radius, grappling and damaging those caught in it. Stuff like that. This allows your overwhelmed monster to keep up with the onslaught of many combatants around them. And with that many PCs in the field, mobility for creatures can also be difficult. Consider abilities that can allow it to escape or more quickly move about without a storm of attacks of opportunity tearing its head off. Perhaps have an attack ability that also pushes the target back 10 feet, now allowing them to move about safely. Or a move ability that lets them teleport or leap 30 feet without fear of retaliation. Here's also some fun general tweaks you could possibly add to it as well to kind of liven up the combat. You can implement damage milestones for the creature, which means when a foe gets below a certain threshold of damage, they gain new abilities or transform like some crazy video game boss fight. They begin to regenerate or grow a new limb, allowing additional attacks, or they enrage and deal even more damage per hit while the combat drags out. Abilities that can add or change the terrain of the battlefield are also a lot of fun. A salamander who leaves an ever-burning trail on their path where they walk, and anyone who crosses that previously walked path now bursts into flame and takes damage. You can also implement minor layer actions for non-solo encounters. These are all experimental ideas, and mistakes will be made, and you learn from them to find the real balance for the game. That's part of the fun of running these kind of larger or smaller games. I would recommend erring on the less and then scale higher as you progress. That might help prevent an unintentional TPK on your party when you're in the middle of just trying to get them in the mood. Anyway, hope you enjoyed and learned something from the episode. You will see me on other episodes of GM Tips here on geekandsundry.com, and I'll see you guys on the internet.